There has been a lot of conversation around the topic of monitoring spirits. And as your spiritual informant, I would like to add my own 2 cents, if you will, to this topic about monitoring spirits because honestly, it is a lot more complex and even more nefarious than people may realize. Hello, beautiful people. It is Oshun Kimmy, your sage, your guru, your mystic, and your spiritual informant. And today I would like to clear up 4 misconceptions that we may have about monitoring spirits, what they are, and how they work. So, one of the first things to know about monitoring spirits is that they don't just monitor. And for this reason, the name monitoring spirits can be a bit misleading because they do a lot more than monitor. These spirits meddle, they sabotage, they interfere with blessings and opportunities that rightfully belong to us. And they are very much so intelligent and interdimensional beings. So just calling them monitoring spirits kind of reduces and downplays all of the other things that these spirits are capable of doing. These spirits can speak, they can think, they can plan, they can organize, they can travel in between realms, dimension, and some can even travel through time. And so this takes me to misconception number 2, which is that many people talk about monitoring spirits as though monitoring spirits is just one type of spirit, when the truth is that any entity can be used as a monitoring spirit. So entities of various categories, ranks, and dominions can be used to monitor a person. So there isn't just one general category that we should be thinking of as a monitoring spirit. So when people ask me how to get rid of monitoring spirits as though they're all just the same type of spirit is a bit confusing for me because I know that monitoring spirits have various categories. So what may work to get rid of one spirit may do nothing for another spirit because they are all different. There isn't just one type of monitoring spirit. And the way that a monitoring spirit acts and affects a person is going to vary from person to person and from situation to situation. And so it's also important for us to understand that monitoring spirits work for someone or for something. So when asking me, how do I get rid of XYZ? It depends on who sent it and why. So monitoring spirits are sent and assigned to a person either by a sorcerer or by an entity themselves. And so this brings me to misconception number 3, which is that it is a misconception that every single monitoring spirit is sent by a sorcerer. That is not true. There is not always a human sorcerer behind the presence of a monitoring spirit. An entity can be assigned to target and monitor you by demonic forces, meaning that an entity themselves can choose to target and monitor a person. They do not need human assistance or interference for this matter. And we see situations like this, especially where a monitoring spirit has targeted a person on their own accord. We see this especially in situations where a person is dealing with familiar spirits. And I've talked about familiar spirits before in previous videos I've made about generational curses, but familiar spirits are essentially entities that have been oppressing a lineage for centuries and for generations. And so in situations where we are dealing with familiar spirits, a person can be born with a monitoring spirit already attached and assigned to them. A sorcerer does not necessarily have to be involved. And if a familiar spirit has been oppressing a lineage for generations, causing poverty, addictions, disease, and etc., then descendants of that lineage will most likely be born with monitoring entities already attached to them, because that entity's job is to make sure that that person does not break the generational curses that has been casted upon their lineage for generations. And so in this way, a monitoring spirit is also a handling spirit. It is a handler spirit in that its job is to handle that person, to keep them away from their destiny, to keep them off of their spiritual path, to keep them from spiritually awakening, right? And so misconception number 4 when it comes to monitoring spirits is what we need to know is that monitoring spirits do not always spy on us in their spiritual form. Monitoring spirits can inhabit bodies, human bodies, animal bodies, and especially insects. So a fly on the wall can be a monitoring spirit. Gnats, roaches, spiders can be monitoring spirits. Your cousin, auntie, grandma can be a monitoring spirit. A cat or a dog can be a monitoring spirit, because monitoring spirits can inhabit physical forms. They do not necessarily have a physical form of their own in this realm, because they come from other dimensions outside of our own, but they can inhabit and interdimensionally travel into physical bodies within this realm. And so people around you may be asking you questions, asking you a lot of questions. Oh, how's school going? How's work going? Where do you work? Where do you blah, blah, blah? How do you do this or that? They don't understand that they are being influenced by a monitoring spirit that is within their aura or attached to their being. And so from everything that I have said here, it should be clear that monitoring spirits should also be understood as handling spirits, because their job is not just to monitor. These are sabotaging spirits. These are oppressive spirits. Their job is to ensure that a person does not become spiritually awakened or begin to walk the path of their highest destiny. And as I always say, there is no one size fits all solution when it comes to witchcraft, because each spell is going to be different. The spell caster is going to be different, and the entities used to activate the spell will vary as well. So because I know people are going to ask, how do I get rid of monitoring spirits? I'm going to be honest and say, I cannot tell you that surely and specifically without doing a reading into your specific situation. Who sent the spirit? What was the spell? What entities are being used, etc., etc. Nevertheless, I'm going to give you some general tips that still should alleviate your situation to some degree. And so tip number one is that you should always be keeping yourself and your home very physically and spiritually clean. Dirty spirits like dirtiness. Low vibrational spirits like low vibrational environments. So your home should be very spiritually clean, and the vibrations and the energy of that place should be high. So I recommend smudging with herbs other than sage, floor washes made with herbs and ammonia, spiritual baths made with herbs. Salt baths are not sufficient. Herbs have banishing and protective functions. We must learn how to use them in our spiritual walk. Your spiritual cleansing is to keep negative and low vibrational entities out of your home, physically and spiritually. When you have a clean home, it reduces the amount of pests that you may have within the home that could be occupied by monitoring spirits. So no cobwebs, clean floors, no dust, etc., etc. So tip number two when dealing with monitoring spirits is to keep secrets, point blank, period. Not everybody needs to know everything about you. Keep your future plans to yourself. Keep your income to yourself. Keep where you work, what you're up to yourself as much as possible. If it's not a complete necessity for someone to know, do not tell them. Secrets are protection. Mystery, having mysteriousness about yourself, is a form of protection. Tip number three when it comes to monitoring spirits is to pay attention to people in your life who are acting as monitoring energies. So when people are being too nosy about yourself and your life, those are the people that you need to watch yourself and what you say around. Tip number four is to always be doing your protection work over yourself, your home, and your future. Say your prayers, light your white candles, place your wards around your homes, wear your amulets, your crystals, etc., etc. Tip number five is to increase your spiritual study and your spiritual rank. You must always be learning more about the workings of this spiritual world and about who you are in the spirit, so that you know what types of rights and authority you have spiritually, because a lot of these spirits can be casted down and sent away if we have the proper spiritual stature and if we are vibrating according to our highest spiritual nature. We have dominion over particular types of spirits. So with all of this being said, if you need a reading to gain further insight about any spiritual situation in your life, please do not hesitate to reach out. And if you are ready to take your spirituality to the next level, this is where I suggest joining us on the Patreon. All in all, I hope that this video was helpful and that it has enlightened you. May peace and blessings be forever upon you. Ashe.